The ship came down through the clouds like a falling star, slow and bright against the pale sky. Its metal hull gleamed as it landed on the long green field outside a shining city. From the windows, tall towers sparkled, built by beings who had never known war. They had waited for the humans for many days, unsure what to expect. They had heard stories of humans who had crossed wide distances, surviving where no other kind of life could. When the ramp lowered, Captain Aaron Blake was the first to step out, his boots pressed into the soft ground. He stood tall and still, his uniform plain but neat, his expression calm. Behind him came his team, Nora Hayes with her quick bright eyes, Luke Barnes with his strong and careful hands, and Ethan Cole, quiet but sharp as a knife. Together they looked around at the strange city sparkling in strange light. The air smelled clean and warm. People who lived there watched from a safe distance. Their clothing shimmered in soft colors. Some of them whispered when they saw Aaron's face. They did not whisper out of hatred, but out of fear. To them, humans were both danger and wonder. They had read about the wars humans had fought, the trials they had won, the long nights they had survived with only hope to guide them. A tall man came forward. He was their king, dressed in silk and silver, his daughter standing beside him. She was young, graceful, and curious. But when she saw Aaron, her breath caught. His eyes were sharp and gray, steady as stone. His face bore lines that spoke of storms, and his calmness did not feel safe. She stepped back quickly and clutched her father's arm. "Father, not him," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I am terrified of that human soldier." Her words were not meant to echo, yet the quiet courtyard carried them easily. The guards nearby froze. The other humans heard. Aaron did not flinch. He only lowered his gaze slightly as if understanding her fear. He had seen that look before, many times on many worlds. It was the price of being human in a galaxy that believed power always came with cruelty. The king's eyes narrowed a little, but not in anger. He looked at Aaron for a long moment. This soldier did not seem cruel or wild. His stance was not the posture of someone who came for blood. No, the king thought, this man carries a different fire, one that burns from duty, one that protects even when afraid. Aaron stepped forward and bowed his head slightly. His voice was steady, slow, and deep. "We come in peace. Our Queen Catherine Blake sent us to speak with you to learn, and to offer friendship." The king's voice was calm as he replied, "Your queen must be brave if she sends her best soldier into the unknown." Aaron's lips curved into something that was almost a smile. "She says that friendship means nothing unless one risks something for it." The princess looked at him again, still frightened, though now more curious than before. He seemed to calm, to silent, to steady. She had grown up surrounded by peace, by gentle laughter, by walls that glowed with light. This man looked like he carried storms in his chest. She wondered what it would be like to live as he did, walking through danger and still finding time to offer kindness. The group was escorted toward the tall white hall in the center of the city. People lined the streets, whispering and pointing. Many could not believe these were the same humans spoken of in legends. Those who had conquered despair without wings or magic, who built homes on dead worlds and brought them back to life. Aaron walked quietly, his gaze moving from the strange glass towers to the calm faces that hid trembling hearts. The team behind him stayed close, watching every shadow, though no weapon was drawn. For a moment, a soft breeze passed over them, carrying the scent of flowers that grew high on the palace walls. Inside the grand hall, light flooded down from great windows. The marble floors shone like still water. Da, da, da. The princess took a seat near her father, unable to stop glancing at the human soldier. Measured. His eyes sometimes softened when he looked at his team. He was human, she realized. Not a creature of force, but a person who carried the marks of his long journey. The king spoke again, his voice heavy with both caution and hope. "We have waited long to meet your kind. Many fear that humans bring conflict wherever they go." Aaron looked up, meeting his gaze. "That is true sometimes, your majesty. We never come without reason. We fight when we must, but we build when we can." The king's expression softened. Though the princess still could not shake her unease, she watched Aaron's hands. They were strong, scarred hands that seemed made for both breaking and building. She whispered again, too softly for all but her father to hear. "Father, he carries the look of a storm." And the king replied almost to himself, "Yes, but sometimes the storm brings rain that saves what would otherwise wither." The hall grew silent then, the air heavy with waiting. Above them, the light shifted through the glass windows. No one spoke. For the first time in many years, both sides, human and host, felt the pull of something new. Fear and awe mixed in every heart, and the world itself seemed to hold its breath. The next morning, the city woke under a pale, golden sun. The streets were quiet, and the air carried the sound of distant bells. The humans had been given rooms in a tall tower near the palace. The rooms were clean and bright, with walls that shimmered faintly like glass touched by water. Aaron Blake stood near his window, looking out at the strange city below. He could see people moving slowly, watching the tower where he and his team stayed. Their faces showed both curiosity and fear. Nora Hayes was sitting at a small table, cleaning her tools. "They seem peaceful," she said. "But they also act like we are going to burn their houses down." Aaron turned to her. "They only know what they have heard about us," he said softly. "And most stories about humans are full of fire and war." Luke Barnes, who was checking their supplies, grinned slightly. "We do make a strong first impression," he said. Ethan Cole looked up from his tablet. "Maybe we should try to make a better second one." Aaron smiled faintly, though his eyes remained serious. "That's exactly what we'll do." Later that day, the group was invited to return to the palace for a formal meeting. The halls were filled with people dressed in fine clothes. The king sat on his high seat, his daughter beside him once again. Her eyes, bright and uncertain, darted toward Aaron as he entered. She still felt that strange fear she couldn't name. It wasn't the fear of pain or harm. It was something deeper, fear of the unknown, of a man who seemed carved from storms and battlefields. Aaron bowed politely before speaking. "Your Majesty, we thank you for your welcome and your patience. My queen wishes only to build trust and friendship. We hope to share what we have learned about survival and to learn from your peace." The king listened carefully. His voice was calm as he replied, "Your people have great strength, Captain Blake, but strength can both protect and destroy. We have lived in peace for hundreds of years because we chose to put aside the ways of war. It is hard for us to believe that a soldier can speak of peace." Aaron nodded. "I understand that. On my world, we also wanted peace, but it rarely came freely. We had to fight for it, even when we were tired of fighting." The king studied him for a moment, then said, "You speak like a man who has carried heavy burdens." Aaron's gaze shifted toward the high windows above them. Sunlight poured in, painting long silver lines on the floor. "I've seen what happens when good people do nothing," he said. "That's why humans stand when others fall. It's not pride, it's need." The princess was listening closely now. For the first time, she wanted to understand him instead of fear him. She leaned forward and asked in a soft voice, "Do you ever wish you could stop? To live in quiet and never fight again?" Aaron looked at her, his eyes tired but kind. "Every day," he said. "But peace lasts only if someone protects it. I don't want to fight, Princess. I just don't know any other way to keep people safe." Her heart softened at his words. He did not sound like a conqueror. He sounded like someone who had seen too much pain. She realized something then. Maybe what frightened her was not him, but what he represented, a world that had to fight simply to stay alive. The meeting continued for hours. Questions were asked about the human world, their queen, their travels through the stars. The king listened to everything, but said little. He was trying to see beyond the soldier's stoic face, looking for the truth in his eyes. When the meeting ended, the king stood and said, "You and your team are welcome here for as long as you wish. You can know this. My people are fragile in spirit. We do not understand the kind of strength you carry. Be patient with us." Aaron bowed again. "We will, Your Majesty. Become his friends." As the humans left the hall, the princess watched them go. She could not stop thinking about the way Aaron spoke, the calm sadness in his tone. It was unlike anything she had known. That evening, the city shone with lights. Music floated through the air, yet in a quiet balcony above the palace, the princess stood alone. She looked toward the tower where the humans stayed. She imagined Aaron standing by his window, much as he was the night before, watching the silent city. She wondered if humans had learned to hide their fear so completely that even their eyes looked like steel. She wondered, too, if somewhere inside his chest there was still a flicker of hope, something small, stubborn, and shining, the same thing that kept his kind walking forward, no matter how dark the path. When Aaron finally stepped onto his own balcony, the night air cooled around him. He saw the distant figure of the princess. She seemed delicate, almost made of light. He gave a small nod, a silent promise that his purpose here was peace. She did not wave back, but she did not look away either. In that single shared glance, fear began to soften into curiosity, and curiosity into something quieter and more fragile respect. The city below lay still, unaware that this small shift between two hearts might someday change entire worlds. Days passed quietly after the meeting in the palace. The humans were treated with polite caution, always surrounded by curious eyes. They walked the streets of the city, learning about its people, its calm ways, and its soft peace. The team tried their best to blend in, but they could feel the distance that still stood between them and the people of this world. Aaron Blake spent most of his time studying the great energy towers that powered the city. They shone at night like lines of blue glass and hummed with a steady current beneath the streets. Engineers from the palace guided Aaron and his team through long tunnels deep below the surface. They spoke proudly about how their power came from the core of the planet itself, stable and endless. Aaron listened carefully. "And there's never been trouble with this?" he asked one of the older engineers. "Never," the man said with a tired smile. "It has been steady for hundreds of years." Aaron frowned slightly, his eyes tracing a faint pulse of light running through the floor. He didn't like the way it flickered. Years of experience told him that when something that powerful ran too smoothly for too long, problems were waiting just beneath the surface. That evening, he sat with his team on the balcony outside their quarters. The night was calm, and the lights of the city shone softly below them. Nora leaned on the railing and said, "You're thinking about those towers again, Captain." Aaron nodded. "I don't trust them. There's an instability. I can't prove it yet, but I can feel it." Ethan tapped on his small device, scanning data they had taken underground. "You might be right. There are small fluctuations in the core readings. They repeat every few hours, like the whole system is gasping for breath." Luke sighed. If that core fails, it'll take the whole city with it." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen." The next morning, a faint tremor passed through the city. Windows rattled and birds fled from the rooftops. The people paused in the streets, unsure at first if they had imagined it, but Aaron and his team felt it clearly. They looked at each other, the same thought passing instantly between them. Something was wrong. The king sent for Aaron within the hour. When the humans arrived at the palace, they found the court filled with anxious voices. The princess stood beside her father, her hands clasped tightly together. Aaron bowed quickly. "Your Majesty, is everyone safe?" The king nodded but looked worried. There was shaking in the southern district. Some of the power lines went dark for a short time. "It has never happened before. The engineers say it is only a small imbalance. They tell me not to worry." Aaron's expression grew serious. "You should worry," he said. "This may not be small. The system under your city could be unstable. I want permission to inspect the lower levels again with my team." The king hesitated. "Our engineers have always handled these matters. They fear that too much human interference might upset the balance." "Your Majesty," Aaron said firmly, "that energy source collapses, there won't be a balance left to protect." The princess stepped forward, eyes wide with concern. "Father, let them go, please. If there is even a chance they can stop this, we must let them." The king sighed heavily and nodded. "Very well, Captain Blake, you have my leave." Aaron nodded once, then turned to his team. "Gear up. We go now." Within the hour, they were deep below the city again, moving through long metallic tunnels bright with glowing veins of light. The trembling had stopped, but the hum of the energy flow seemed uneven, like a heartbeat stumbling out of rhythm. Ethan checked a monitor on his wrist and frowned, core pressure climbing again. Luke tightened his gloves. "This continues, those towers above will start cracking." Aaron moved closer to a large control panel. Nora traced the feed to the main reactor. "Let's see where it's weakest." They worked quickly, their calm focus cutting through the hum of the tunnel. After several minutes, Nora pointed toward a narrow passage that sloped downward. There, that's where the readings spiked the highest. Aaron nodded. Then that's where we're going. They followed the glowing path deeper until they stood before a massive chamber pulsing with sharp blue light. The floor trembled slightly under their feet. It was beautiful in a dangerous way, like a living heart beating too fast. Aaron stepped closer, scanning the fractured lines across the walls. "It's worse than I thought," he murmured. "If this seal breaks, the entire city core will implode." The others fell silent. The sound of the reactor's hum filled the air like distant thunder. Back in the palace, the princess waited near the balcony, staring out at the horizon. She thought of what Aaron had said the night before, about humans standing when others fall. Now those words echoed in her ears, somewhere beneath her city. That same human was standing again, facing the unknown with nothing but courage and stubborn will. The ground gave a small shake again, stronger this time, as the lamps on the walls flickered. The princess took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "Please, let him be right. Let him save us." Far below, Aaron looked up as dust fell from the high ceiling. His voice was steady as ever when he said, "We need to act fast. The city depends on us now." And with that, the human team moved to face the storm waiting in the heart of the world. Deep below the bright city, the air was hot and heavy. The long tunnels that once glowed with calm blue light now flickered with unsteady flashes, like lightning trapped underground. The sound of the planet's heart filled the space, a low roar mixed with the sharp hum of broken power lines. Aaron Blake and his team stood together at the edge of the chamber, their faces lit by the trembling light of the core. Aaron studied the large structure in front of them. Energy flow spun through glass-like pillars, shaking more with every passing second. Cracks that spread along the main conduit, glowing like burning veins. He could feel the heat on his face. "We don't have much time," he said quietly. Ethan checked his readings again and frowned. "If it bursts, it'll vaporize the city above in minutes." Nora looked around for tools. "We can still stabilize it if we cut the overload feed and reroute the flow. But someone has to go down into that lower pit to do it." Aaron didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." Luke grabbed his arm. "No, Captain. We do this as a team." Aaron shook his head. "If that core ruptures, only one of us will make it out. You three stay up here and keep the emergency channels open." Luke opened his mouth to argue, but Aaron's steady gaze stopped him. There was no space for doubt. He was their leader, and he had made up his mind. Above the ground, the city had begun to panic. People filled the streets as small tremors shook the buildings. The king tried to calm his people, but fear spread fast. The glowing towers that had stood for centuries flickered, their hum turning into a low groan that echoed through the sky. The princess watched from the palace balcony, her heart pounding. Every time the ground moved, she thought of the human soldier far below. She could almost hear his calm voice in her mind, telling his team to stay strong. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Come back alive, please." Down below, Aaron climbed carefully down into the pit. The light was blinding. Energy rushed through the air like a storm of fire. His sight blurred for a moment, but he kept moving, breathing slower to stay calm. "Captain, your oxygen's dropping fast," Ethan called from above. "I'm fine," Aaron answered. "Just keep the system ready for reroute." He reached the damaged section where raw energy poured through a broken pipe. Each pulse made the chamber tremble like thunder. Aaron fixed a support cable, then braced himself. He only had one chance to seal it before it tore apart completely. Sweat poured down from his face, and the heat pressed against his skin like fire. His gloves crackled as he pulled away melted metal. His voice came through the radio, calm but strained. "On my mark, redirect the power flow through Channel 7. "Ready," Nora said. Her voice shook slightly. Aaron took a slow breath. The ground shuddered violently. Bright light filled the pit as he connected two heavy cables together. The flash was so strong that the others had to look away. Alarms echoed through the tunnels, and for a moment it looked like the whole structure would explode. Then the light began to settle. Shaking slowed. The sound of cracking stopped. Ethan stared at his monitor. Core pressure dropping. "It's working." Nora let out a shaky laugh. He did it. Luke looked down toward the pit. "Aaron, do you read me? Come on, answer." For a few long seconds, there was only silence. Then Aaron's voice came through, calm and tired. "Still here," he said. "System stable. We're safe." The team cheered, relief flooding their voices. They helped him climb back up, his armor scorched and hands trembling. When he reached the platform, Nora grabbed his arm. "You almost cooked yourself alive down there." Aaron gave a faint smile. Right, it was the only way. Up above, the glowing towers grew bright again. The tremor stopped, and the people of the city looked to the sky in disbelief. The king stood on the steps of the palace, watching the light return, and knew in that moment who had saved them. Hours later, when Aaron and his team finally returned to the surface, the palace guards bowed their heads as they passed. The king came forward to meet them. He looked at Aaron with deep respect. "You risked your life for a city that once feared you," the king said. "You have done what no one here could have." Aaron shook his head. "I didn't do this for thanks, Your Majesty. I did it because people were in danger. So that is what we do." The king's eyes softened. "Your kind builds peace from courage and pain. I see now why your queen sent you." The princess stepped forward then. Her eyes glistened with emotion, though she tried to stay composed. "I was wrong about you," she said quietly. "I thought you carried only danger, but you carry something stronger than fear." Aaron bowed slightly. "I carry my duty," he said, "and a hope that one day no one will need to fear us again." The princess smiled, a soft light breaking through her unease. Around them, the city glowed brighter than before, the air filled with the sound of people cheering. For the first time since their arrival, Aaron felt something like peace settle over his heart. Humanity's fire had once again turned fear into hope, and this world would never forget it. The air felt lighter, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath. People filled the streets, smiling and crying at once. Everywhere there were sounds of relief and small joy. They looked up at the great towers that now shone stronger than before, their light steady again. The fear that had hung over them was gone. In the palace hall, the king stood near the window watching the horizon. He could still see faint dust rising from where the tunnels had been repaired. Behind him, his daughter waited, her hands folded tightly. She had not spoken much since Aaron returned to the surface, but her thoughts were crowded with questions. She had spent her life in peace, yet this single human soldier had shown her what true strength meant. When Aaron entered, the hall went silent. His uniform was torn in places, his hands wrapped in thin bandages, his face pale with exhaustion, yet his eyes were calm as always. He moved with simple grace, not proud at all, just quietly sure of what he had done. The king walked down the steps and met him halfway. "Captain Blake," he said, his voice strong, "you saved my people. You faced our storm when all others froze in fear. We owe you more than we can ever repay." Aaron shook his head. "You owe me nothing, Your Majesty. Came here to build trust. Saving your city is the best reward I could ask for." The king's face softened. "You speak as though courage is simple." Aaron smiled lightly. "It is never simple, but it is always needed." The princess took a slow step forward. Her eyes met his, and for the first time since they met, there was no fear in them. She looked at him as one looks at the sea, still slightly in awe, but with deep calm. "When I first saw you," she said, her voice quiet, "I thought you were a storm come to break our peace. Now I see that sometimes a storm saves what calmness cannot." Aaron bowed slightly. "Peace is fragile. It must be guarded even when it frightens us to do so." For a moment, no one spoke. The walls around them seemed to glow with the morning light. Outside, the city bells began to ring, the people celebrating both their survival and the heroes who had made it possible. Later that day, in a quiet garden behind the palace, Aaron sat on a stone bench, resting for the first time in what felt like days. The soft hum of the towers above filled the air, steady and peaceful. Luke and Ethan joined him, each carrying a small tray of tea brought by the palace cooks. Nora smiled. "So, Captain, do we finally get to rest?" Aaron leaned back and looked at the sky. "For now," he said, "as long as the city stays quiet." Luke laughed softly. "You make rest sound like another mission?" Aaron smiled at that, then closed his eyes for a moment. The garden smelled of fresh flowers and clean water. It felt like a different world than the glowing tunnels beneath the ground. After a while, The princess came into the garden with her father. The king thanked each of them again, not as a ruler, but as a man grateful for the lives of his people. He told them that from that day onward, the name of the human soldiers would be remembered as protectors of the city, not outsiders. When he left, the princess stayed. She sat beside Aaron. For a moment they said nothing, only listening to the soft sound of wind through leaves. "You have changed how my people see humans," she said finally. "They will tell stories about you for generations." Aaron shook his head. "Tell them about what humans stand for, not about me. Tell them that we are flawed but hopeful, that we fall often but rise again, that we never stop trying." She looked at him with quiet respect. "I will." That evening there was a celebration across the city. Lights filled the sky, music rose from every street. Children ran through the gardens laughing and holding bright lanterns. The towers glowed like stars descending to rest among them. Aaron and his team stood with the king on the palace balcony, watching the scene. Nora whispered, "It's strange, seeing another world celebrate peace because of us." Aaron nodded. "It is a good kind of strange." The princess turned to him. "When you leave, will you return?" Aaron looked out at the people below. "If peace endures, I won't need to. That will be enough." She smiled softly. "Then I hope our peace lasts." When the night ended and the last lantern faded, Aaron looked up at the star-silent guardians above a sleeping world. He thought of Queen Catherine, waiting back on Earth, proud and patient. She would be glad to know that humanity had not come here to take, but to give. Before leaving the city, Aaron and his team were escorted to their ship by the palace guard. The king offered a final blessing, and the princess pressed a small stone into Aaron's hand. It was simple, smooth, and warm to the touch. "A piece of our world," she said. "So you will not forget that even strange hearts can beat together." Aaron kept the stone in his palm for a long moment before nodding. "I won't forget." The engines roared softly as the ship rose into the golden sky. The people below waved, their faces bright with hope. The princess stood on the highest balcony, her hair moving gently in the wind. As the ship climbed higher, sunlight streamed across its silver frame. The world below grew smaller, and the stars ahead shone wider. Inside the cabin, Aaron looked once more at the stone in his hand and smiled faintly. It was a symbol, a promise, and a memory proof that humanity could shine, not just as warriors, but as keepers of hope. And as the ship drifted into the quiet dark between worlds, it carried with it not only men and women from Earth, but the living proof that even across endless distance understanding could grow where once there had only been fear.